How's it going? Guy with Evil Powers on the phone with ya. I want to cover aiming in general, but more specifically to this in cat. Now, before I start, I want to make something clear. I advocate against using third person in cat because it is inherently uh, structured to give you an advantage. And where's the challenge and fun in that? I mean, how can you be proud of getting a kill by hiding, right? So this will be more focused on first person aiming. And I think a lot of people don't use it. One, because third person is a lot easier and it takes a lot less skill. But two, because people don't really know how. They only really know how to track a target or to, guess where they are or to fight on their own terms, and they don't have experience fighting on the enemy terms. And first person is really good at that. So a common misconception is that aiming is just reflexes and flick speed and, whatnot. It's not. So I'm going to break down 5 things. We'll go with 5 things that you can work on. This is not a step-by-step program. This does require a lot of effort to get good at it. So, now these 5 things are going to be prediction, practice, sound, experience, and knowledge. So for prediction, it's not about where they are. It's where they're going to go. You're not aiming or following players with your cursor. You're following their route. You're aiming at locations, not at their hitbox. And this can be done in a huge number of different ways. But the bottom line is to recognize how players move. And that comes with experience. One thing that I like to use a lot is how people react very predictably under pressure. And I think that a lot of people copy the movements of players who get a lot of kills, and they'll subconsciously do those same movements. And so if you're looking for these movements and you've already fought against them and practiced against them, aiming will go from confusing to child's play. Another thing that really helps me aim is letting enemies walk into where I'm aiming, not trying to follow them, but aiming in a spot and just keeping myself there or setting myself up so that when they fall into my reticle, I can time it. This does come with some drawbacks in which you time your own shots, which leaves you open until you make your shot, but I think the drawbacks aren't significant enough to warrant not using this strategy. And when you're predicting, you don't have to predict, 2 or 3 seconds in the future. When I'm predicting, I might be predicting a half a second, up to 1 second in the future, just from how they're acting, how they're responding, and I'm using a whole lot of different minutiae, if you will, to predict. But in order to develop any skill, especially one like aiming, you need to practice. You're not training your hands to do anything. Sure, muscle memory helps, but it's all about practiced movements, knowing exactly how far you need to move your mouse. Sensitivity is a big one. DPI is a big one. You can't copy anybody's sensitivity and expect to be as good as them. It's all about the training and the practice. One thing I'll recommend is not play the same game for all day, because that doesn't help you. Anybody who's gone to university before knows that cramming doesn't work. What you need to do is many short matches, short instances where you're practicing maybe for 30 minutes or an hour at a time. That does so much more for you than 8 hours a day for a week ever will. Once you practice enough, you'll find yourself in this area where you're no longer thinking. In fact, I have this zone that I can get in that I don't really have to think anymore. I just react instantly to my situations, and that gets me vote kicked more than anything else, because it's almost precognitive aiming. And sometimes if I've played cat for a while, I'll notice myself overthinking my shots, and that's when I start missing. Trying to overcorrect and overanalyze every situation, don't do that. Let your brain handle it. Just focus on what you need to react to and practice with that. Now, number 3, sound. It is so important. I cannot stress this enough. One of the best tools, especially in first-person aiming, sound. It's your set of eyes that lets you see through walls. That's what I use every time I play CAD. Sometimes I'll turn sound off just to challenge myself, or I'll just listen to music which cuts out sound and my gameplay suffers for it. But sound is free, legal wall hacks if you're paying attention and you have enough practice to know what these sounds mean. And it's not just footsteps. It's the sound that happens when somebody spawns. It is their footsteps, but it's also them shooting their guns, throwing their knife, drawing their weapons, jumping, the items that they're using, whether that's the speed coil or others. All of these things create a sound that can be like a ping on your brain's sonar. Sometimes I'll be just aiming at a certain location because I know somebody is there, or I'll listen to fights that are happening away from me. I'll watch the kill feed and see who won that fight and guess where they're headed and intercept them and kill them. Sound makes all of this possible. Similar to practice, the fourth one is experience. Practice creates experience, but it takes more than just practice to have experience. You need to pay attention to a lot more than just enemy movement and aiming. You need to be familiar with every map, spawn locations, how your opponents will react in any specific situation. You need to weaponize that familiarity. You know that they'll do this if you do something. So how about you do that and wait for them to make your planned response? And that's how you trap kill. Situational intuition is a lot better than situational awareness, and intuition only comes from experience. Now, very similar to experience is knowledge, but fundamentally different. Experience is the application of that knowledge, but having the knowledge itself is equally important. So knowing how your gun behaves, knowing how enemy guns behave and knives and all the nuances of the game, and this is true for every skill out there. Recoil, hitboxes, how your movement slows when you're in air and you can use that to trap people who dare jump, how quickly your gun fires, the timing of your knife throws. All of these give you an edge that can really help you. And more importantly, knowing how your own weapon works, knowing how your enemy weapons work is exceptionally important, because if you know your enemy, then you need not be afraid of them. So I know this was a little bit crash course. I can expand on any of these if you guys would like, but long story short, good aim is not magic. It comes from prediction, knowing where they're going to be, which also comes from practice, experience, and knowledge, and also using sound to have eyes in the back of your head across the entire map. If you work on even one of these skills and just move to another, you'll find yourself aiming a whole lot better in just a couple of days. Anyways, hope that was helpful for any of you. Back to causing problems. Take care.